I want to thank you for letting me get back to doing my podcast. I'll definitely put a new computer system in. This is going to be on the 8th book of the Bible, the book of Ruth. And it's a positive life book on the Bible that shares two very important lessons for all of us. Number one is loyalty, love, and faith. We learned that from Ruth and Naomi. And the second thing that's really even more important is that this book of Ruth, there again, it proves a royal lineage of Jesus Christ prophesied 700 years before by Micah in the Old Testament, chapter 5, verses 2. And he says, "But you, O Bethlehem, Ephrathah, though you are small among clans of Judah, from you shall come forth one who will be ruler in Israel, whose coming forth is from ancient days." And of course, we're talking about Jesus. So as we go through the book of Ruth, it's a short book, and it starts with Naomi. And that's two main characters in the book of Ruth, Naomi and Ruth. Naomi was a wife who left Bethlehem with her husband when they had famine in Judah that swept through the land. And she had two sons and moved to Moab, which is present-day Jordan. And within 10 years, her husband and her two sons, Clinton and Macon, both died. And they had two wives that were left with Naomi, two daughter-in-laws. And the hero of the story is one of those daughters-in-law, which is Ruth. Naomi told daughters to go home to your own families because I must return to the Holy Land, Judah, Bethlehem. And one of the most beautiful passages in the Bible, from Ruth, who refused to leave her mother-in-law. And then Ruth said this to Naomi, "Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee, for whither thou go, I will go, and where thou lodges, I will lodge. Thy people should be my people, and then my God, thy God, will be my God." Ruth, obviously from Jordan, did not grow up under our God, but she would have known, because she married Naomi's son, she would have known our God as her God even then. And then Naomi takes Ruth, returns to Bethlehem, and Naomi is full of despair of being old. Husbands and sons died. But Ruth did not sit around the home of Naomi and sister at home. She immediately went out seeking food, gathering barley in the field of a relative, Naomi, a gentleman called Boaz, a very, very wealthy man, definitely an Israelite or a Jew. And she lays at his feet, and he knows she is special and a favorite daughter-in-law of Naomi. And he blesses her and decides to take her as his wife. And at the village gate, being wealthy, Boaz, he buys back Naomi. His brother Ishahar inherits an old Jewish custom that the name of the dead should not be cut off, marries Ruth, and then Ruth and his son is called Obed. And the second part of this important book of the Bible is the fact that Jesus is real. Mainly because Boaz, there again, each books of these Bible works on one to the other under the same narrative. Only God can do that by using different writers. Boaz, he's a descendant of Rahab, and she was that prostitute under the book of Joshua that we talked about. When Rahab, she married Salome, tribe of Judah. So we have the descendant coming, and Boaz and Ruth have a son, and he becomes the father of Jesse, and who will become father of King David, one of the kings whose Jesus' legal father comes from Joseph. And the birthplace, strangely enough, it's all tied together. Bethlehem is also the birthplace of David. And as we come to this historical narrative, the lineage of Jesus, in Matthew 1, verse 17, from the generations from Abraham to David was 14 generations, and then deportation to Babylon, and they stayed there 14 generations. And then from 14 generations to Christ, we end up having 42 generations, almost 500 years, trailing the lineage of Jesus. What is important for us is that, if you look at later on, the Rome and Herod, and we look at Joseph and Mary, and then when Joseph flees and goes to Jerusalem and Jesus is born. And so this Bethlehem becomes the birthplace of Jesus. And we look at 1200 BC, the population under Ruth was 500 people. It's 6 miles from Jerusalem. And then if we look at in 2017, the population of Bethlehem was 28,000. So we see that ancient days that Bethlehem is a small city, but very, very important, and who lives there, and the lineage starts, going from there. So as we go through the whole book of Ruth, we learn about family and how family sticks together and respects each other, and the loyalty of Ruth following Naomi, and then Naomi there to see the son being born between her and Boaz, and then that son, he will produce the father of Jesse, who's the father of Joseph, and which is incredible, and then the birth of Jesus, all tied into Bethlehem. So this is a short narrative, but very, very beautiful and very kind and very wonderful. And next week we'll get into the 9th book of the Bible, and it's going to be the book of Kings, or the book of Samuel, book 1 and book 2, and it'll start getting into the kings that the Israelites want to rule over them. And we have one king, it's definitely going to be Saul, and the second king is going to be David, and then the lineage of Christ from there. So I want to thank you very, very much for letting me get back here and narrate the book of the Bible and the Jesus Social Hours. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.